Thank you, and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests around the world. Tonight, since we're just 2 days away from the March for Life in Washington, D.C., we want to talk about a concrete way you are able to help stop abortion peacefully and prayerfully in your own community. But first, before we get to that topic, I want to talk with Mr. Jeff Hahn, who is the EWTN Director of Online Services. Well, what's new with live streaming, especially coming up for the March for Life. Jeff, what do you have for us here tonight?
Yeah, sure. Well, Father, one of the biggest streaming events for EWTN is the March for Life. Yeah. And so for those who are at the March, they can see what's going on from an EWTN perspective. And there's a lot of people who don't go, who want to go, that will still be able to go through EWTN. Mm-hmm. And we usually average probably over 150,000 views just on that one day for that event. Mm-hmm. And so it's
that's views on the internet site?
That's views on the live stream for that, for the pro-life event, for the March. Wow. And if people want to know more about our pro-life events this week, they can go to ewtn.com/pro-life. Yeah. And all of our events are listed there. And a lot of people watch us, and it's a service that we offer, and it's a very expensive service, so we do appreciate any support that we can get for that service. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so important because people who just can't go there, this is so great to have that available. And the March is very inspiring. It's powerful.
It is. For my kids, my wife, they all watch it, and you know, we'll get over 1 million hours of views that month or this coming month for the March.
Great. Well, thanks letting us know what's going on and how you can get hold of that app for your phones. Take it with you anywhere you go. That's a really good thing. All right, we're going to take a little break, and we'll come back in just a minute with our guest for tonight, so please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Our guest tonight is the CEO and president of 40 Days for Life, one of the most effective international pro-life efforts that's out there. Not just to fight the issue of abortion, but it helps mobilize people just like you, regular folks, to actually save babies and the mothers that want to abort them, as well as care for the fathers of those babies and for the clinic workers who might be doing the abortions. Since 2004, it has grown from a single prayer vigil in College Station, Texas, to well over 6,000 prayer vigil campaigns in 61 countries around the world. Some of the uniquely personal stories from 40 Days for Life campaigns will premiere later tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN. It's a new documentary called Life Journey with Shawn Carney, and I watched it. It's great. He's also written a brand new book entitled To the Heart of the Matter, the 40-day companion to live a culture of life. And he'll share with us how our own prayerful presence in front of abortion clinics really does save lives. So please welcome Mr. Shawn Carney.
Father, good to be with you. Good to be back.
Nabbit, it's always good to have somebody from the Republic of Texas.
The Republic of Texas is here at EWTN. We're representing well, and you were a closet Texan, but now you're a full-blown Texan.
Well, I guess so. Yeah,
wearing your boots when I got here today.
Well, that's pretty much every day.
Pretty.
My boots and hat are just that's clothes.
And you're the only Jesuit I know who wears a cowboy hat.
Is that right?
Yeah, congratulations.
I think we have to start a trend.
I think, yeah. And that needs to become a trend. I think it'd be good.
This 40 Days for Life that you're doing is really effective. You know, I've been to some of them in different parts of the country, way up in Fargo, North Dakota.
Yes, great campaign.
Oh, yeah. How did 40 Days for Life start?
Well, I think it started the way a lot of things in the pro-life movement start, which is out of frustration with the state of our culture and how it's melting away from the family and to the churches and to our communities. And I was at Texas A&M University. My wife and I worked for a local
student there?
Student, yeah. Yeah, the largest Catholic university in the country, as you know.
It's really amazing. It's a very, very Catholic place.
It is.
You know, and so...
So yeah, we've got all these wonderful Catholics there, we've got all these wonderful Baptists there, and we had the first ever Planned Parenthood abortion facility that was built. And my wife and I were sidewalk counselors all through college. We started working for the local pro-life organization, and we saw our local abortion numbers going up. And so we spent an hour in prayer of really desperation, which I think anyone who's been in this movement longer than I've been alive has had many of those. And it returns us to our roots, prayer. And 40 days just came to us. 40 days of prayer, 40 days of fasting, and 40 days of a nonstop peaceful vigil.
That's how took our Lord 40 days in the wilderness to fight against the evil one, to fight against Satan and his deadliness. And this is something that is, a great way to look at. Also, the reason that 40 is so frequent in the Bible as a number to mark off things, that's the number of weeks of human gestation.
Right.
Babies are in the womb for 40 weeks. So 40 days always has, or 40 years, all that, always means completion in totality.
It does, and it has a beginning and it has an end. And this is satanic. This is our real enemy is the devil. And we have to hand this over to God. And I think that's why 40 Days for Life has spread. I know that's why it's spread, is because it's focused on Christ, but it says, look, we have to do something. We just can't sit here. But we have to hand this over to God.
Now, that first 40 Days for Life in 2004 in College Station, Texas, did that have any impact?
It did. It dropped local abortion numbers by 28%. And so we thought, that's great, that's wonderful. And it wasn't until a few years had gone by, other cities started asking us. And so David B. Wright and I launched it as a nationally coordinated effort in 2007. And now, we're 13 years later, and it's gone from College Station, Texas, to over 900 cities in 66 countries. And so that is, we were hoping and praying that there were people out there that were willing to take this, trust us, trust the process, that you're not going to go out and get arrested, but you are going to go out and save a life and stand up publicly and sort of insert yourself in what goes on in your town, and everybody kind of goes around saying this is fine, this is the way it is, and your public presence says it's not fine, and thank God we live in a country where we can do that. So people ran with it, and it's been fantastic, and it points to the true heroes of 40 Days for Life are those courageous local leaders who sign up and lead their campaigns. And we've had some folks who have been doing it for 13 years. We've had some people entering our largest spring campaign this Lent. They're doing it for the first time, and if they're normal, they're probably terrified right about now. But that's what ends abortion in America, is at the local level and focusing on the hearts and minds.
Did you have enough people to pray for all 40 days when you were getting started with this?
No, we had enough Knights of Columbus. so they took the night shift with a K, and they were out there from 11 o'clock at night to 7 a.m. in the morning. My wife was out there from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And as you know, there's no such thing as fall in Texas. There's just unbearably hot and mild. And it was very hot in the fall. And we just had, the four of us committed to always be out there if nobody would show up. And ironically, in our 40 Days for Life, folks around the world have noticed this. It is easier to fill a 24-hour vigil than a 12-hour vigil because they get to pick which one they do. And of course, Lent, most people do 12 because of weather. But unless you're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, they go 24 hours. But they're above and beyond. The 24-hour commitment is so overwhelming to people. And they have an hour. They have 960 hours during 40 days. So it's easier to get into people's schedule, and it motivates them, so they sign up.
I think those Green Bay people are tough because they have that uncovered football stadium.
I think it's because they no longer realize it's cold because they lived up there so long, so they're numb.
There's that
Most
too.
of them have been frozen for a decade. They just don't realize it.
They're tough. They're tough. But it's something that you also mentioned in our discussion is that some countries respond better than others. What's going on?
Definitely. Well, it's where faith is. Obviously, they respond, but Western Europe has been weaker. France, Italy. We have a great campaign in Germany, but it gets probably the most persecution in Frankfurt than any other place in the world.
Really?
It's led by a wonderful lawyer. Croatia has exploded. 30 campaigns in Croatia. The UK has lots of 40 Days for Life campaign. We have a staff member in the United Kingdom. And sadly, now we've had to go to Ireland. So we'll have 40 Days for Life in Ireland now that they have abortion. But it really has thrived in Eastern Europe, Africa, where faith is alive and they love children. And growing. But by far, it's Latin America. I mean, the last 3-4 years with 40 Days for Life, we have just seen a rapid growth of campaigns in Latin America. I've been to Bogota, Colombia. We trained our leaders there. We had a conference at the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe this last summer, and we just have a great presence, have a great leader, Lourdes Varela, who leads the campaigns down there.
And I think this is important to note because we have had our own federal government administrations. Some of them have been adamantly in favor of promoting abortion. They tie abortion and birth control information to foreign aid. If you don't agree to start teaching your women how to kill your babies, then we're not going to give you any other foreign aid.
And we follow it up. It's the government and it's also corporate America. We follow it up with, by the way, you're welcome. This is our gift to you. You are now sophisticated. You ought not breed. And there's nothing more elitist or condescending than going into some of these countries who love life, who love family, and saying, stop having children. And to his credit, Donald Trump defunded tax dollars from going to the UN for abortions. He defunded Planned Parenthood internationally. And that doesn't really get a whole lot of media coverage in the US, but we've seen it at 40 Days for Life because we're in all these countries. And the leaders say, this is detrimental to Planned Parenthood overseas. This is detrimental to Marie Stopes.
This is exactly why Planned Parenthood is planning to spend $45 million on the next campaign season, this year being the time for campaign. They see that this is important. They want to support pro-abortion candidates around the country in the 2020. This is the largest contribution that they are making to politicians.
They just announced that, actually. And they, sadly, they've just brought in a record number of tax dollars, $616 million. That $1.7 million a day they're getting from tax funding. But one of the few good things out of their annual report was the fact that they lost 400,000 individual donors to Planned Parenthood. that's unbelievable. And you're at EWTN, and I'm at 40 Days for Life. If you lose 10% of your donors or 30%, it's detrimental. But they lost nearly half. And so that's their scandals, that's their brand is hurting, and it's a good sign. And that shows the impact that has happened at the Grassroots with all of these wonderful pregnancy centers, with having peaceful vigils out front. They're losing donors.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the other places too that we talked about was prison.
Yes.
Is there an abortion clinic in the men's prison?
No.
So why would you do 40 Days for Life there?
Well, we had a wonderful leader in Michigan who did prison ministry, who was the 40 Days for Life leader. And she said, I have my vigil, but I'm going to go into prison and give out the daily devotions that we have and the daily scriptures and the daily intentions. And these prisoners started fasting and giving up meals and doing 40 Days for Life in the prison. So I put it in a book I wrote called The Beginning of the End of Abortion, and I did a chapter on this prison. And prisoners started reading that book. And prison ministries, Catholic and Protestant, started taking the book into prison. So I went to Huntsville. You're familiar with that? The state prison, not because you were an inmate, but because you've been down there.
Will not pursue my familiarity. Go ahead.
I actually don't know you that well. Maybe you were. But I went down there and spoke. And that's a tough place. Nobody's in there because they stole a candy bar. These are real criminals. Yeah. And
that's probably the most secure prison in Texas.
Right.
And it's surrounded by bayou and swamp and marsh.
Yeah.
So that prisoners who have escaped go back.
Yeah.
Because they're scared of the gators and stuff.
It has that reputation.
Yeah.
You're not getting out of the Huntsville prison. And I got to speak there. I met our campaign leader, who was leading the 40 Days for Life in prison, and it was a great experience. One of the true blessings that I've gotten to be a part of just from being part of the pro-life movement, and I got to go and speak to these prisoners. All of them have abortions somewhere in their family, or they've paid for an abortion. But I met two.
So their own kids were aborted.
And I wasn't around new inmates for security, so everybody that I spoke to had been in at least 6 years. And one gentleman literally went into that College Station Planned Parenthood when it was open. We were out there doing a 40 Days for Life campaign, and he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, I was going to abort my son. And me and my girlfriend saw y'all out there, and we left. And now I have a 9-year-old on the outside, and he keeps me going in here. Yeah. And I met another gentleman who's been in 45 years, and his daughter is a cloistered Carmelite nun in Italy, and she's dedicated her vocation to the unborn. Yeah. And he had his scapular on, and he said he prays every day for an end to abortion.
Yeah. So this is something that is the prison ministry is very near and dear to me, so it's great to hear. Now, we want to give a couple of little clips here. We've got one about a former abortionist. That's a close friend of yours.
Yeah, good friend, longtime friend.
Good guy, yeah.
Haywood.
And he wants to talk, he talks about how money is the issue. It is the fuel. Let's take a look at this from your special, the life journey.
There are a lot of abortion doctors right now that are doing abortions, and we've talked to them in the UK. They're in the United States. None of them talk about how this was the plan. Mm-hmm. None of them say, I went to medical school, I came from poverty, and I want to be the best abortion doctor in the United States of America. You were poor, you had nothing, you didn't even know you had nothing. You go to medical school, you become a doctor, you get married. What was your first abortion? How were you introduced to abortion?
Part of my training in OBGYN, which included learning to do a procedure, D&C, dilation and curettage, which you know plenty about. But that particular procedure is what we made money off of. Now, some women have that same procedure done, when they have a miscarriage and they have to have the uterus cleaned out, but that procedure made us a lot of money. If you subtract money out of the money variable, out of this equation of abortion, we wouldn't be sitting here talking, right? There wouldn't be a 40 Days for Life. There wouldn't have been a Planned Parenthood, because money is the fuel that drives this whole abortion holocaust. The doctor is just the executioner. He has nothing to do with any relationship with the patient. You walk in the room, you don't give the patient any eye contact. I give you the money, you kill the baby, you go your way, and I go mine. And you don't think of this woman as a real patient, because in your mind you really know this is just.
So this is Dr.
Haywood Robinson.
Haywood Robinson.
And he is from Compton, South Central Los Angeles. Neither one of his parents went to college. He went to Caltech. And I've known Haywood a long time, and he was part of the first 40 Days for Life campaign. He just retired from medicine, and so he works for us now, thankfully, because he can't tell his story enough. And there's something powerful about seeing Dr. Robinson speak in front of an abortion facility.
Yeah, and as someone who had done this to a lot of children.
Yeah, and Haywood, you know, when Abby Johnson left the abortion industry and walked into my office, the first book I gave her, before she had even resigned, was Hand of God by Dr. Bernard Nathanson.
So you knew Abby?
Yeah, I knew her for 8 years.
You know
yeah.
her, yeah.
And knew her for 8 years working at Planned Parenthood, which helped when she had a conversion. Because, you know, a lot of people, if you're seeing her story for the first time on a news outlet, you're going, she's not for real. But I knew she was because I had known her for 8 years. And when she broke down in my office, I knew that it was genuine. But the first.
So that was in the movie, that was your office?
Yeah. The movie was accurate. The movie, that was pretty accurate. And I introduced her to Haywood. Haywood got cut out of the movie. but he was the first person. And Abby talked about it in her book of how profound it was to pray with somebody who had done abortions. And I remember leaving Haywood's office with her. We were standing in the parking lot. None of this is in the movie. And she looked at me and said, "I'm quitting. Can't do this."
Yeah.
It's just like that.
Again, you'll see more of that interview with Haywood on Life Journey with Shawn Carney tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN and on EWTN.com. And you know, by the way, if you haven't seen Abby Johnson's movie, you got to see it. It is also truly wonderfully, wonderfully done. It's called Unplanned, and you ought to watch it. It's really good. And now you see another one of the real characters. Abby's been on here too.
Yeah.
So this is a good thing. Now this is. You know, the kind of thing that we're saying to folks, you can do this. How much does it cost to join 40 Days for Life?
It's about $10 million just to sign up to go. No.
I guess I have to get out of it.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't afford it. No, it's free. I mean, that. And
you don't need any money to go there and pray.
It is a gift that men and women in our country died so that we could have. And yes, we do this for love of God, but we also do it for love of country. And we get to go out there. You know, the ACLU said that 40 Days for Life was the greatest threat to choice because it was out of the grassroots and well organized. And they said this at a conference. And of course, that was a great compliment for us, but that's very true, that it is grassroots and it is organized, and that's the epitome of, you know, George Weigel said, 40 Days for Life's America at its best. We're using our rights, but we are putting the contemplative before the active, which I believe is extremely important because this is evil, and we just can't, you know, go out there with some casual attitude because this is a horrific genocide that goes on in our neighborhoods.
I was talking to a political operative from the pro-abortion party here in the United States. And she told me, you guys who are praying for the end of this and work with it hasn't worked. You haven't done it. And it's not over yet. So just quit.
Just stop.
And
Well, that makes it easy. We can,
Yeah.
we can turn off these cameras.
And my response was, I remember how the same political party was against freeing the slaves. And it was Christians who prayed and spoke and were active against their party platform in favor of enslavement of African people. And it took a long time and a lot of blood and sweat and tears and lots of blood in the Civil War. But it worked. And it was not because the political operatives did it, but believers kept alive. We have to end slavery. We have to be with the same kind of commitment because it's right and it's good. We have to take a little break. We want to come back in just a couple of minutes and get your comments and your questions, so please stay with us. All right. Are you ready for some questions?
Always. Can ask me anything.
All right, well, let's see what Rebecca wants to ask you. Rebecca, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, where are you from?
Well, I am from Cicero, Illinois.
Okay, well, on the west side there. What is your question?
Well, I was going to tell you a story about Planned Parenthood.
Yes?
Well, I had a pregnancy test there with my blood work, and they said I was pregnant. I was very young, and they said that they could do something to stop it, and I said no, and I ran away from there, and I never looked back, and I had my son.
Oh, good.
Beautiful.
How old is your son now, Rebecca?
27?
Oh, good. Do you still like him?
No.
No.
I'm kidding.
She has a sense of humor, too.
Maybe. We'll have to find out what the kid did.
That's right.
No, he's an amazing human being. He's an amazing child.
Oh, that's great.
Beautiful story.
Yeah. So thank you, Rebecca, for telling us about that.
And that
episode.
happens where, she said, I don't know if she actually ran, but we've had women that have literally run through a Planned Parenthood abortion facility and gone to the 40 Days for Life volunteers.
Wow.
Sprinted their way out.
This is something that, the way that they put it, we can do something to stop it.
Yes, it's like you have a tumor and they can
Yeah.
help you. It's the schizophrenia that we've gotten ourselves in the United
Right.
States of America, where we can, in a very amazing, unbelievable way, do surgery on a 22, 23-week-old baby with spina bifida or any other disability. And it's a miracle. Or we can go in and abort the same child. In Sacramento, there was a late-term abortion facility on one floor of a hospital, and on the next floor was the neonatal clinic. And that's a lost culture. That's a culture that's forgotten its identity, doesn't know where it came from, doesn't know where it's going. Where one level, it's a blessing and a joy, and we're miracle doctors, and the next, it's a freedom and a license, and we're doing this barbaric surgery that we wouldn't do on our greatest enemy.
One of my former students is a neonatologist up north, and she had been pro-choice. She was raised that way. She was an atheist, didn't believe in God, and if anything, like was practicing witchcraft. And she, proving what Chesterton said, that if you lose your faith, you don't believe in nothing, you'll believe in anything.
That's right.
And when she became a Catholic, a part of it was realizing this is wrong. And now she's a neonatologist. And during her career, she has seen viability age go down and down. So now 21 weeks and a baby can survive. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it as we say in Texas, it used to be, you know, you just moved the goal line. Viability was 25 weeks, and then it was 24 weeks, and then it's 22 weeks. And we're just, this is the problem with eugenics, right? Once we decide the circumstances where we're going to tell you how valuable your life is, we just start making things up to fit our own agenda, and no one is safe.
And she works with these children. These little babies are at 21 weeks and 22 weeks and 23. They're her patients. And she sees they each already have their own little personality. Yeah. It's not like they're a blank. They have a real personality, not a blank sheet.
And they didn't gain dignity during gestation. They had it at conception. Yeah. And somehow, you know, we've convinced ourselves that we're more valuable at 21 weeks or 30 weeks.
That's Dr. Singer's approach over, you know, in teaching that you get more value as you get older. He must be getting old.
That's right. He likes himself.
We have Bill on the line. Bill, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Orlando, Florida.
Great. Welcome. And what is your question?
Well, first of all, I missed you on church in the morning, Father Mitch, and I'm happy to see you made my day today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
God bless you and Shawn. There should be more guys like Shawn, but the problem is that there's too few of us to stop this. This is outrageous. If the legislators took more time to concentrate on abortions and euthanasia, I think we'd be a better country, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Orlando's a great 40 Days for Life campaign, by the way. I've been there many times. Yeah, great campaign. Massive Planned Parenthood there. But yeah, he's right, and that about the men, you know, we hear this is a woman's issue. Men should have no say, and part of that the men have created. You know, I don't want to get involved in this, and sometimes we say men have been emasculated and are on the sidelines, but a lot of times they've sprinted to the sidelines and removed themselves, and we can't have that.
Yeah, Bill, did you have a further question or comment?
Yes, I did. I wanted to ask Shawn. I wanted to ask Shawn, first of all, what's his background and how did he get involved in this? And if you could explain to us what we can do to stop these Planned Parenthoods popping up everywhere. And if they're from our tax dollar, why can't we go in there and monitor these places and have a person there like you or me and say, listen, you have another option. You don't have to have this abortion today.
Yeah, well, we can do that, obviously, but we do it on the outside for 40 Days for Life. But he's right. They get $616 million of our tax funding, and they're the most unregulated section of, it's not medicine, but it's considered medicine, of any kind of medical practice, any kind of surgery. These abortion facilities are so unregulated. As far as how I got involved in this, or my background, I'm from Tyler, Texas. We've been discussing Texas pretty much all day today.
And I know Tyler pretty well.
Yes, you've been to Tyler many times, and so 2% Catholic. We had these wonderful Baptists, and we had a few Catholics, most of which I was related to. And we had great Irish priests, missionary priests, and they, at the time, Ireland didn't have abortion. So they openly, joyfully, truthfully spoke about abortion. Really inspired me as a young person, as did post-abortive women, women that fortunately didn't do what our caller earlier, Rebecca, did and run out, but that went through with it. And that really challenged me as a young man to do more when I got to college. And through the inspiration and example of my now wife, you know, she was an excellent sidewalk counselor. And I just thought this is it. And I wanted to be a corporate lawyer and have a bunch of kids. And we have a bunch of kids. but we have 8, thank God.
But you're not a corporate
But I'm
lawyer.
not a corporate lawyer. We got more lawyers that we know what to do with, but they're all great. But I'm not one of them, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to another clip about the spring 40 Days for Life campaign. Let's take a look at that.
I would encourage you mightily to lead a 40 Days for Life because you are being involved in something that is so significant. You're being involved in Jesus' work.
And I think people are really realizing that it's not enough to pray from your house, that you need to be out there on the sidewalk because that's where the abortions are happening.
40 Days for Life is so unique. There are many beautiful ways to be involved in pro-life. Thank you, Jesus, for every single one of them. They are all needed. But something that is so incredibly, radically specific to 40 Days for Life is every part of 40 Days for Life is grounded in and founded in the one who has the power to effect change. It is all about Jesus.
The Lord told us clearly that in this world you will suffer persecution. I already know through scripture that we're on the right side. Who's going to stand up for these babies? Say yes to God because now is the time.
I love the fact that the commemoration of Roe versus Wade allowing of decriminalizing abortion, which is what it did, is so close to Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Mm-hmm. And one of the real other problems is that a very disproportionately high number of African American children are aborted. I think 34% of all abortions are African American children.
They only make up 12% of the population.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So this is not good.
And that also speaks to the courage of a lot of our leaders, because a lot of these abortion facilities are not in the best parts of town, and that's intentional.
Yep.
And so
60% of abortion clinics are in African American neighborhoods.
Right, in Latino neighborhoods. I know in Queens there's a large Puerto Rican neighborhood. We had a huge 40 Days for Life campaign there before that facility closed. So it's missionary work.
Yep.
But you go around the corner.
Yep. We have another caller. Hello, Mike.
Yes, this is Mike.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Wonderful. Welcome. And what is your question?
My first comment is I'm a former, I was Democrat up until 2016, my whole life, and pretty much was silent on speaking up, even though I probably thought abortion was wrong. If somebody asked me, I'd say, yeah, I'm pro-choice. But I started watching EWTN, and I guess it started changing my mind. But where my heart really got changed was when I saw the stories, women talking about their abortions and what it had done to them. So what I believe is if more of those stories get out there, and I know there are some that get out there, but more of them even get out there on social media, if women, I know this is a hard thing to do, but maybe they go with a buddy. If they started showing up at the town hall meetings in Iowa and then next in New Hampshire and then South Carolina, however, where it goes where all the Democrats are, I think at least if they don't open the hearts up to these Democratic candidates, maybe it'll soften their hearts a little bit to at least start asking more and start to look more into to what abortion really is. And if it got out more on social media, just the stories, simple stories of 2 to 3 minutes are so powerful. on video and film, and more people started speaking up, and it's just more of the biggies in the world started speaking up, like Tyler Perry Studios and Oprah, and where they could just say, they don't have to say come right out and say I'm pro-life, but they could say, hey, I saw this video of someone talking about their story, or I talked to someone in person. We've got to listen to these women.
Yeah, this is something that is very good. There's the Silent No More campaign.
That Father Pavone does?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. And
they lead the March for Life.
Yep.
I mean, it's awesome.
Yes, they do.
So
yes, they do.
This is what's beautiful, his comment. Number one, what a great testimonial to women who do have the courage to share their abortion experience. You get people like Mike and certainly me when I heard it as a young man, and hear it today. And you'll hear it tonight on Life Journey at 10 p.m. Eastern. We have a very powerful testimonial from a woman who had 4 abortions. And
from a doctor who did abortions.
And so, we have the data. Yes, today, 47 years of legalized abortion. We don't have an ivory tower distant view of this. This isn't an academic thing. If it was, the easiest position in the world to have is to be pro-life intellectually. But we now have the experience of abortion, and this movement is not a movement of a bunch of self-righteous Christians telling everybody else how to live.
Nor is it a bunch of Christians saying, you are hateful, you're going to burn in hell.
You're going to burn in hell. No, it's converts. It's Abby Johnson, it's Haywood Robinson, it's all these women who have had an abortion and laid on that table and gone through this really living hell. And those are the most powerful voices in the pro-life movement, and those, about 25% of our local leaders, Father, are women who have had an abortion. And some of them are doing it in front of the very facility they had their abortion in 20 years ago. Yeah. So it's a beautiful movement, and this scares the abortion industry, and it should, because the conversion gate swings only in one direction.
Yeah.
There's nobody working at EWTN or running a pregnancy center that all of a sudden wakes up and is 60 years old and realizes, I've raised my 8 kids, but I really should have been running a Planned Parenthood abortion facility my whole life. Those conversions don't happen. They're not on the speaking circuit. No. So it's a tremendous blessing.
And I think Mike's point is well taken, that we should try to encourage and facilitate as much as we can to get those stories to be known. And we'll take a look into that, Mike. Thanks for that. We have Ann online. Ann, where are you calling from?
My name is Ann. Am I on the air?
Yes, you are. Where are you calling from?
Okay. My question is for Shawn.
Okay,
Shawn,
go ahead.
I respect all that is being done to close the clinics and stuff. But why aren't you people, Father Mitch as a priest, preaching no sex before marriage? Sex leads to abortion, especially with the young, very young girls. I have taken 2 young girls into the emergency, and one was 14 and one was 16. One was having terrible, terrible cramps, and the least thing in our head was from my sister-in-law that this young little girl had sex, because, but the doctor being on the ball, when she examined her, she said, when was the last time you had sex? Well, I was shocked at the fact she even asked her that, but I was more shocked when my niece said 2 weeks ago. And so she said, but I shouldn't be having these, I took the pill. Ha-ha. Well, then the other one, the 16-year-old, again into the emergency, but I guess now the doctors are having this experience. Why aren't you preaching no sex to prevent abortions?
Well, Ann, first of all, I do. I preach it a lot. And I don't preach it just in my home chapel. I get on here and talk about it this is something that is a major, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, she's dead on.
This is key.
Yeah.
That you get married before, and I've talked about that plenty.
I've talked about it a lot too, and I put a chapter in this new book, To the Heart of the Matter, and it's called Virginity is Not a Curse Word. And I think
which in fact, when I've seen comedy shows where they treated it, said, "Are you still a virgin?"
Yeah,
it's like,
there's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with you, as if you're. I don't know the point of it, but we have gotten so far from the relationship of love and sex, obviously. But as I got older...
And commitment.
And I said something to a bunch of high schoolers, and one of the moms or teachers came over and said, "You need to really talk about that more." But I said, I got older and realized on a practical level, forget morals, that's the reason I did it, but I got married as a virgin. My wife and I both did. And looking back, that was the best decision I ever made when you just think of all the drama you don't have. Yeah. And all of, if everybody waits till marriage, yes, there are some married people that get abortions, but we know that's not what we're talking about with the millions of abortions that have happened in America. And we have removed the dignity and the sacredness and the beauty from sex, and that has led to abortion. So I think it's a great message, and there are people that aren't virgins who start over, but there has to be that commitment that you give yourself to one person, and it starts with our kids. I think it's so important, and this cynical attitude that they're going to do it anyways is so backward and dangerous for our children. And so I think she's right. Obviously, you preach about this. I've talked about it. It's definitely in the new book, loud and clear, as is the elephant in the room, which is contraception. And I think that we have to take this. We didn't get here overnight, and we know that.
Yep. No, this is extremely important. And Ann, let me assure you, I will continue to preach it. Whether you ask me to or not, I'm going to do it just because that's what I do.
I like how she started that phone call, though. I like you guys, but.
Yeah, you're in for trouble.
I love it.
We have one more clip that I want to show from a lady from your life journey video. Let's take a look at Catherine Walker and what she has to say.
Have you had the opportunity, what do you say, not to the women that have just, maybe had an abortion but are considering an abortion, where you take them aside, you're one of the most loving people we know, you put your arm around them and you say, I've been down this road, and you don't want to go there?
One of the most loving things that a parent can do to a child when it's age appropriate is to have this conversation and explain that, this is a reality that we all face. And if you ever have this happen, which I hope to God it doesn't, please know that we are here as a family. With anything, we're here as a family to navigate through life together. And please tell me, you will come to me and tell me. That's a gift. That is a gift to give to a child as you're raising them. Don't let them go to an abortion clinic where those people are going to embrace them and they're going to feel like you're going to be thrown out of the house because you're not. You're not. What a tragedy. I mean, my parents would be devastated to know, they would be devastated to know that I destroyed 4 of their children, their grandchildren. There's not a doubt in my mind, but we never had that conversation either.
What hope does it give you that having had 4 abortions, you can share that message with a young woman who thinks she's going to be thrown out of her own house?
Yeah. I went through a lot of pain and anguish, but I'm not wasting it. I am not wasting an ounce of it because I know I want to glorify God with it. I'm okay with where I'm at because I know where I'm heaven bound, and I know God has forgiven me and my sins have went to the cross. And I want these women to know that too. They don't have to make these decisions. There's so many resources out there. There's so many options for them. And if they decide eventually that they go in that direction, I have at least had a moment with them to share with them really so many other things that I only wish that I would have heard, because I really do believe that it would have gone in a different way.
the advice that she gives to talk to your children, your boy children and your girl children, about this as soon as it's age appropriate. That's pretty young these days, because there are plenty of children having children. But also to keep in mind that a lot of the people who are protesting abortion and praying outside the clinics will also help these women who are in a crisis pregnancy to get help, medical care, postnatal care, and so on. They'll get them clothes, with all the stuff that this is something that these folks are not just saying don't have an abortion and then you're on your own.
Right.
That's not what goes on, is it?
No, and you'll see that in the documentary tonight, in Life Journey at the end.
Exactly.
And you'll meet the leader who got the appointment with the doctor and helped take kids to school and went to work for this mom. And that's what's so beautiful, is, well, you don't care about the children that are born, which is really this sort of elementary cop-out. In other words, I'm not going to talk to you about abortion because you don't care about whatever fill-in-the-blank issue. And it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, they have to assume that, because they can't deal with their responsibility otherwise. They have to live that illusion.
And it belittles what abortion is.
Exactly.
It belittles what it is, and the pro-life heroes that I've gotten to meet, and the workers. We've helped 196 workers who have left their jobs. Abby was the 26th out of 196, and the welcome that they get. They all say the same thing, the women and the workers, that if you weren't here, if you weren't out there,
right,
then we wouldn't have left. We wouldn't have turned around. I wouldn't have this 3-year-old or this 5-year-old. And that's the power of presence and of being willing to help.
And that's what I love about going to some of the pro-life clinics when they have fundraisers. They bring their babis.
They bring the babies.
Again, watch the March for Life live on EWTN from Washington, D.C. Begins 9 a.m. Eastern Time this Friday. Also go to EWTN.com/pro-life for information on other pro-life events covering this, as well as resources to stand up for life. And we want to thank you for being here very much, Shawn. It's great to see that you sort of look like the actor in the movie that pretended. May the Lord bless you all and keep you and fill you with his love and with his life. May God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We can bring you these apps, this coverage and all that, because you make it possible. So please keep us in between your gas bill, electric bill, and cable bill. A lot of expenses coming up this week, but if we save the lives of the babies, it's worth it. Thank you. God bless.